Welcome to the Egg Whisperer Show, a program exclusively designed to promote reproductive health awareness and discuss fertility preservation options. Here is your host, the Harvard-educated fertility specialist, Dr. Amy.
She's known as the Egg Whisperer. Fertility expert Dr. Amy Avazadeh.
And you have yet another success story
Just launched by an East Bay fertility doctor.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Egg Whisperer Show. I'm Dr. Amy Avazadeh, and I'm your host today. And I have Dr. Amy Beckley, two Amy's. Hi, Amy.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us today. And the title of today's show is Everything You Need to Know About Progesterone. You can see that on my t-shirt with special guest Dr. Amy Beckley, creator of Proov. So, Amy, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. I am just an infertile scientist that had an encounter with unexplained infertility that decided to take my experience and create a product that could help other people.
Great. And just tell us a little bit about the product. I know I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions about it, but for people who are just listening right now, what is the product?
So this is the product. It's called the Proov test. And basically what it helps you do is helps a woman understand if they're ovulating properly. So my problem and why I was infertile was I had ovulatory disorders. So I had a luteal phase defect. And so what that meant was I was ovulating and I was producing progesterone, which is released after ovulation, but it would just crash too soon. And so my progesterone wasn't high enough for long enough to really support conception. And so what we did is we created Proov, which allows you women to use it with their ovulation test to time intercourse. And then you use the Proov test 7 to 10 days after your ovulation test said it was positive. And what that helps you understand is if you successfully ovulated and you have enough of this hormone to support conception. And the cool part about this is it's not a blood test. So it's non-invasive, it's urine-based. So we actually measure the urine metabolite of progesterone instead of progesterone itself. So it's a simple first morning urine sample, 4 days in your cycle, and you have empowered information that you can take to your doctor, work with your doctor about, improving ovulation or stimulating ovulation. It just helps you, monitor ovulation.
And how did you know that progesterone was an issue for you?
So I was unexplained infertile, and, Proov wasn't around when I went through this. And my doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. I was unexplained infertile. Cycle day 21 or, 7 days after ovulation, blood draws, always have my progesterone between 5 and 10, and they considered that normal. All my day 3 blood work looked fine. My tubes were open, nothing was in the uterus. And, they told me that IVF was really the only option because they really didn't understand what was wrong with me. And so, we went through IVF. I have a son who's almost 10, due to IVF. And so it was amazing, wonderful experience. But then when I wanted to expand my family again and have my second child, I kind of put my scientist hat, because I have a PhD in hormone signaling, and tried to really understand why my body was not being able to hold a pregnancy. And so I did all the charting. I did, basal body temperature. I really monitored when my cycle was, was I spotting, and, when were my ovulation tests positive. And I found that the time between a positive ovulation test and when my next period was about 8 days. And so it really wasn't long enough. So a typical luteal phase should have to be at least 10 days or longer. Because if you think about it, so here's my awesome uterus in the background, it takes about 7 to 10 days for the egg to leave the ovary and travel through the fallopian tube into the uterus. And so if you don't have enough time for that egg to make that journey and your progesterone drops too soon, you start sloughing off that lining and you get your period before that embryo has time to implant. And so that was the theory, was I just wasn't making enough of this super hormone to really support implantation and conception. And so I had a lot of conversations with my doctor, and I said, let's just try naturally. And then, 3 days after my LH surge, he put me on supplemental progesterone, which I took vaginally. And within a couple cycles, I conceived. and that's my daughter, who's now 6.
Aw.
And
And
so,
then, yeah, keep going.
yeah. And so that was really like my aha moment, where it was like, I could I understood why my body was not ovulating. And I wanted to empower other women with that knowledge, because, IVF is no joke. I mean, it is an amazing, awesome procedure. But if it's not something that you need, like that you could solve with some other means, that's what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to create a product that empowered women to have more informed conversations with their doctors. It was guiding the conversations, right? Like, when I went into the doctor and I said, I don't know why I'm not conceiving. There's like 80 different things you can do. And it's like helping, if you're more informed when you get to that doctor's appointment, and you say, hey, I did the home sperm test, I'm tracking ovulation, this and this and this. You can help have informed conversations, because you only have, as very limited time with that doctor. And so, that's why we created Proov.
Yeah, and I think you're changing lives everywhere, because I personally have seen patients benefit from this test, because it is what got them into the fertility clinic, asking the right questions, and so they can get the help that they needed. What is progesterone? Can you tell us more about this super hormone for people who don't know a lot about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to go back to my uterus, right? So ovulation tests, right? We all got some here, right? Ovulation tests. You can buy them on Amazon, right? These measure the hormone called LH, which signals when the ovary is about to release an egg. And so that's what happens first, right? So the ovary has a developed follicle. There's an egg inside the follicle, and the surgeon LH matures it and allows it to leave and then go through the fallopian tube, or to ovulate. And then it goes down into the uterus, where it will implant. After the follicle bursts and the egg is released, inside the ovary, that follicle becomes the corpus luteum, which then starts secreting the hormone progesterone. And progesterone's role is to prepare the uterus to receive that embryo. And so basically what it does is it takes that uterine lining, it makes it receptive and sticky, so that when the embryo comes down, it goes, oh, this is an amazing, my doctor used to call it like a peanut butter sandwich, right? It's like you just get embedded in a little peanut butter sandwich, and it's just like happy, awesome environment for that embryo to thrive. And so if you don't have enough progesterone at high enough levels, that uterine lining is not transformed and is not a good, awesome place for that embryo to thrive. And so it's the progesterone that's required to get that uterus ready and to maintain that pregnancy. And so at any time progesterone drops, below a certain level, you're at risk for not getting pregnant, having a miscarriage, or having preterm labor. So it's a really important hormone.
Yeah, and progesterone basically means promoting gestation. So that's a great explanation for it. Before your test, how are people measuring their progesterone levels?
Serum draw. So day 21 blood draw. It is a great thing. It can tell you yes or no you ovulated. But we kind of up the game, and it's not a matter of yes or no, did I ovulate? It's kind of the quality of my ovulation. Did I successfully ovulate? Is it ovulation is not a yes, no, just like, egg quality is not yes, no. It's like the healthier ovulation you can have, the better. And so what we did is we went in the research, and we said, okay, we got to find a better way to confirm ovulation, because it's not a yes, no. And we found, PDG, which is the progesterone metabolite, is more steady than serum. So serum can kind of go like this throughout the day. So if you got a single serum blood draw and it was 6, tells you ovulated, but it really didn't tell you, do you have enough for long enough? And so by measuring the urine metabolite on these 4 days during the cycle, you can really understand, were my levels high enough for long enough to really be a successful ovulatory event.
And how is it different from other tests? I mean, are there other types of tests like this out there, or is this a novel test that just came to market?
We were the first. We were the pioneers. We developed this because of my own personal passion for this, and I just wanted to do good. We did crowdfunding, and it was it wasn't me, a big, company they had a whole bunch of money. It was literally me in the basement trying to figure this out. And so I got about 300 women that believed in this technology and helped us bring it to market. So we're the first and only FDA cleared device like this. And there are other devices. The biggest one is the Dutch test. So the Dutch test, you collect saliva samples, urine samples, maybe blood spot. You do it over your entire cycle, and then you send it to a lab, and then you get the results back, a couple weeks later. Those are about $400 or $500 depending on which kit that you do. So it's very expensive. Ours is about $30 a cycle. So we really try to make it accessible information for women, because we know this isn't the only reason for infertility. So to try to help women diagnose and detect as many things as possible. The other thing is we're completely at home. So it's a 5-minute test. It works just like an ovulation test. You collect urine, pee on a strip, wait 5 minutes, read the lines. It's super easy. You get great information, and then you can use that to have better conversations with doctors.
Mm-hmm. And what about basal body temperature? I mean, can't you check that and see if you have a high enough progesterone level?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay. So yes, you can use basal body temperature to say if you've ovulated, right? Yes or no. But it is so inaccurate because of how you sleep. You're tossing and turning. Is it the summer? Is it the winter? Do you have a fan? Did you have a drink of wine last night? Like, it's a good kind of indication saying maybe I ovulated. It tells you nothing about your progesterone levels. And I was using BBT and I had great patterns, but I still had a problem. And so it's not, it's a good, okay, you can use this, but if you really want to understand if you're ovulating properly and you have enough of the hormone, you have to measure the hormone. Mm-hmm. And so, while people use BBT because they like to see the LH surge and the temperature spike, that's great. That helps you understand your ovulation day a little bit better. But really understanding if it's a healthy ovulation, you have to measure your hormones.
Yeah. And I want my patients to sleep well. I don't want them waking themselves up early morning to check their temperature. I mean, there's so many other things to worry about as you're going through fertility treatment. Checking temperature is the last thing I want people doing. So what about progesterone and treating it if it's not high enough? Are there ways to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing we do is, if you have a 4-day testing window, if you're not getting positives all 4 days, first thing you want to do is call your doctor. Have that conversation with them. There's a lot of things that doctors can do, different medications. The most common ones are the ovulation-inducing medications, Clomid, Femara. Other things are, your body's not making enough progesterone. There are prescription-level progesterone treatments out there. Prometrium, Crinone. Those are, I think, the biggest ones. And then another thing is maybe you're getting 3 out of 4 positives. Maybe you don't want to go the route of, these medications. There's natural things you can do. Diet and exercise, just same thing that you would take supplements to have a healthy egg quality. It's the same for ovulation. You need certain nutrients so that you have a healthy ovulation. So there's a lot of supplements out there that you can work with your doctor to figure out what are the best ones to really have you have a really successful, healthy ovulation.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are doing seed cycling, SEED. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how your test can help?
Yeah, absolutely. So seed cycling is something that we found a couple years ago, and it's the practice of eating certain seeds at certain times of your cycle. Sounds a little kind of voodoo science, but I'm telling you it works. So before ovulation, so anytime before that positive LH or ovulation test, you want to take flax seed and pumpkin seed. And what that does is it helps your body produce natural, healthy level of estrogen. So if you have too much, it helps it lower it. If you don't have enough, it helps you get that to that nice, healthy level. And then after ovulation, you want to switch your seeds to sesame seeds and sunflower seeds. And what that does is it helps you produce a healthy amount of progesterone. And so if you take those seeds at the 2 different times of your cycle, it balances the hormones naturally. And so we've seen women that come to us and they have 2, maybe 3 positive Proov tests, and they're dropping at, like, typically you have them positive and then you drop too soon. That's a typical pattern that we see. And so you're just dropping off a little bit too early. They start seed cycling, they use Proov the next cycle, beautiful results, and then they show us this positive pregnancy test. And it's like, literally the only thing I've done different is seed cycling. So, while seed cycling is probably not going to help you if you're not ovulating and you have some major hormonal issue, it's healthy, it's natural, and it helps support that balance. And so we're huge advocates of it. As always, make sure you're talking to your doctor and you're not trying to self-medicate. And the biggest problem I find is that people don't want to go talk to their doctors, and so they go on Amazon and they buy all this stuff and they spend hundreds of dollars on these things, and they didn't check their levels, they don't know anything about their cycle, and what they've actually done is they've taken things to make it worse. Right. And right. So the first step is to really understand where you stand, is to measure your hormones, to go in for the the initial consult. There's a lot of things you can take at home, home sperm test, Proov, the AMH test, and just get a baseline level on yourself before you go and spend hundreds of dollars on supplements that might actually be harmful.
Right. And I've seen that before. I've had patients order progesterone online from Amazon. They take it at the wrong stage of their cycle, and that can just, make your chances of pregnancy 0 because it affects the lining. So the lining is now past its window of receptivity. So what for doctors who are watching us, fertility doctors, what do they need to know about your Proov test?
They need to know that it's a powerful tool to help them assess ovulation quality. It complements everything else out there. I would love to see all fertility doctors use this as their initial diagnostic, right? You have an initial patient that comes in, hey doc, I'm infertile, I have no idea what's going on with me. Great, we're gonna check your tubes, your uterus, your sperm, your ovulation, and we're gonna do cycle day 3 blood work. And it's kind of like, because ovulatory disorders are about 30% of all cases of infertility. And there hasn't been a really good indication of the quality of somebody's ovulation before we came along. And so I would love it to just be like, it's an extra $30. It's not, this $1,000 of testing. If it's something that's so straightforward as solving an ovulatory disorder, it's a great place to start.
And where can people find the Proov test? I think you're even on the shelves in some Targets. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. We are on shelf at Target in select California locations, target.com nationwide. We are also available on Amazon and our website, proovtest.com.
And then you also have a very active Facebook group that I think can really help a lot of people who are struggling with infertility or even just trying to conceive and want to learn more about their bodies. Can you tell us more about your Facebook group?
Yeah, absolutely. We are rooted in being helpful and being educational. And, I've gone through infertility myself. I understand how lonely, how isolating, how confusing it can be. I mean, there's so many products out there and there's so much, snake oil, so to speak, a bunch of like supplements on Amazon that don't work. And so we created this safe community of really supportive women who, they take a Proov test. They want to know what it looks like. They want to go in there and say, hey, is Proov right for me? Here's my situation. Recommendations. Sometimes I took my Proov tests. I talked to my doctor. They don't believe in progesterone, which still blows my mind. But they're looking for referrals and resources to help them, move forward. And so we have this awesome community. You don't have to purchase Proov to get in there. It's just so supportive and loving and caring that we wanted to create a really good environment for women that, could support them during their journey.
Absolutely. And you also, if people have questions about their test results, you also guide them about what they mean inside that group.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And what's up next? What's next for you and Proov? What are you guys doing next?
So right now we're working on an app on the phone, which basically will, if you look at this testing right here, it tells a woman when to take their ovulation test. And then as soon as it detects a positive, it counts and tells you when to take a Proov test. And then it compiles all this information and it spits out the chart and the hormone graph that you can screenshot, you can share with your physician, and you can really understand, was my cycle healthy, what's going on, and you can use that information to move you forward.
I love it. I think more and more now than ever, people are learning and more about their bodies, and they're trying to do it at home and without having to go in to see a doctor. And I think your tool is based on science, and it's not one of those tests that would waste people's time. And I think it can really make a huge impact and difference. Amy, thank you for all your work. I think it's awesome that we're both named Amy. Thank you for my really cute Got Progesterone t-shirt. What does your t-shirt say?
Don't just predict ovulation, prove it. So that really helps you understand that, just tracking LH and that ovulation prediction is just half of the puzzle. I just did this huge experiment where I tested 13 brands of ovulation tests. Every single brand, beautiful positive. But then I took Proov tests. I had one positive. All the rest were negative. My luteal phase was 9 days. I did serum draws and they were like 3 or 4. It was very unhealthy ovulation. And so without this additional piece of knowledge, you could be basically wasting your time having all this awesome intercourse that's never actually going to result in conception.
Yeah, and then the intercourse becomes less awesome. It becomes really annoying.
Very true.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks again, Amy. I really appreciate all you do. Thank you for helping people everywhere. I hope everyone enjoyed the show. Please, learn more about the Proov test on her Facebook group, on her website. She's a wealth of information. I hope everyone learned a lot. And go prove ovulation. Bye, Amy.
Welcome to the Egg Whisperer Show, a program exclusively designed to promote reproductive health awareness and discuss fertility preservation options. Here is your host, the Harvard-educated fertility specialist, Dr. Amy.
She's known as the Egg Whisperer. Fertility expert Dr. Amy Abazadeh.
And you have yet another success story.
Just launched by an East Bay fertility doctor.